He was handsome, intelligent, and charming, the kind of man people trusted instantly. Ted Bundy could have been anyone's friend, classmate, or neighbor. But behind that confident smile was one of the most calculated and deceptive serial killers in American history. Welcome back to Real Crime Stories, where we uncover the darkest truths behind some of the most chilling crimes in history. He wasn't a monster hiding in the shadows. He was a predator who blended in, fooling his friends, his victims, and even the police. This is the story of how Ted Bundy fooled everyone until the mask finally cracked. Early life. Theodore Robert Bundy was born on November 24, 1946, in Burlington, Vermont. His childhood seemed normal at first, but deep down, things were far from it. Bundy grew up believing that his mother was his sister and his grandparents were his parents. This lie, meant to protect family reputation, left Bundy confused and emotionally detached from a young age. As a boy, he showed early signs of manipulation and deceit. He often felt isolated, different, and resentful toward others. Later in life, he would describe feeling like he didn't fit in, a loneliness that eventually turned into anger. By the time Bundy reached college, he was seen as a clean-cut, well-dressed student. He studied psychology, volunteered for political campaigns, and was admired for his charm. But underneath that calm exterior, something dark was already forming. The murders begin. In the early 1970s, young women began disappearing across the Pacific Northwest. They were students, bright, friendly, and trusting. And they all had one thing in common. The last person they were seen with was a polite man who called himself Ted. Bundy's method was chillingly simple. He pretended to be injured, often wearing a fake arm cast or sling. He'd approach women in public places, libraries, college campuses, parking lots, asking for help loading something into his car. That car, a beige Volkswagen Beetle, would become one of the most infamous vehicles in criminal history. Once the victim got close enough, Bundy would overpower her, knock her unconscious, and drive to a secluded area. He would later return to the crime scenes, revisiting his victims, a behavior that revealed his deep obsession with control and possession. By 1974, authorities in Washington and Oregon were panicking. Women were vanishing with almost no evidence left behind. The media dubbed the unknown killer the Ted Murders, never realizing just how accurate that name was. Bundy was living a double life, a law student by day, a killer by night. He even attended crime awareness meetings and volunteered on hotlines for missing women. No one suspected that the man offering comfort was the very predator they were trying to stop. The arrest and escapes. In 1975, Bundy's luck began to run out. A police officer in Utah pulled him over during a routine traffic stop. Inside his car, the officer found burglary tools, handcuffs, and a ski mask. Bundy was arrested, but he refused to confess. Even in custody, Bundy remained confident, almost arrogant. He represented himself in court and manipulated everyone around him: lawyers, journalists, even the guards. And when things didn't go his way, he did the unthinkable. He escaped. Not once, but twice. The first time, he jumped out of a courthouse window during a recess. The second time, he starved himself to fit through a hole in the ceiling of his cell. For weeks, he roamed free, charming strangers and blending into crowds. Eventually, he made his way to Florida, where his killing spree reached its peak. In January 1978, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University and brutally attacked 4 women, killing 2. It was one of the most horrifying crimes in American history, and it marked the beginning of the end for Ted Bundy. The trial and media frenzy. Bundy's capture in Florida led to one of the first televised trials in U.S. history. America couldn't look away. Here was a man who didn't look like a killer. He smiled at the cameras, flirted with reporters, and cross-examined witnesses himself. At times, it felt like Bundy was performing, feeding off the attention, enjoying every second of his twisted fame. Some women even wrote him love letters and showed up in court to support him. They believed he was innocent, or simply couldn't believe that someone so handsome could be capable of such evil. But the evidence was undeniable. Bite marks, eyewitnesses, and forensic proof tied Bundy to the murders. In 1979, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. Still, Bundy refused to accept responsibility. He continued to lie, manipulate, and charm until the very end. Confessions and execution. As his execution date approached, Bundy finally began confessing, not out of guilt, but as a desperate attempt to delay his death. He admitted to killing over 30 women, though investigators believe the real number was far higher. On January 24, 1989, at Florida State Prison, Ted Bundy was executed in the electric chair. Outside, hundreds of people gathered, cheering and holding signs that read, "Burn, Bundy, burn." His final words were simple and emotionless. "I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends." Moments later, it was over. The man who fooled everyone was finally gone. Legacy. Ted Bundy wasn't the smartest serial killer. He wasn't the most violent or even the most elusive. But he was the most deceptive, the perfect example of evil hiding behind a smile. He taught the world an unforgettable lesson: that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like the neighbor next door. This was Ted Bundy, the serial killer who fooled everyone. If you found this story interesting, make sure to subscribe Real Crime Stories channel for more true crime, and stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you for watching.